Welcome. In this first outcome, we're getting to grips with how academic research actually works, the difference between gathering your own data and drawing on what others have found, and why every good study starts from a clear question. Over the next few slides, we'll look at what separates primary from secondary research, the pros and cons of each, and how to set a sharp research question from the outset. We'll also cover how to tell a trustworthy source from a dodgy one, and how to use AI tools honestly and openly. So, what do we actually mean by academic research? At its heart, it's a planned, systematic search for reliable information, not just idly searching a topic online, but setting out to answer a specific question. Everything you claim is backed by evidence rather than opinion, and you keep a record of your sources so anyone can check your work. The goal is knowledge you can stand behind and defend. Let's get a few words straight before we go further. Data is simply the facts, figures, or observations you use as evidence, and a source is wherever that information comes from: a book, a report, an interview. Primary research means gathering fresh data yourself, while secondary research means drawing on data someone else has already collected. And a credible source is one that's trustworthy, accurate, and produced by a genuine authority. Not everything you read deserves your trust. Credible sources tend to be accurate, up-to-date, and written by people who actually know the field. And they'll show you the author, the date, and where their evidence came from. Unreliable ones often hide who wrote them, or they're pushing some agenda. Anonymous posts and undated pages should set off alarm bells, so always check a source before you lean on it. Here's a handy checklist for weighing up any source. It's called the CRAP test, and the 5 letters stand for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. Currency asks how recent the information is. Relevance, whether it truly fits your question. Authority, who wrote it and whether they're qualified. Accuracy asks whether it's backed by evidence you can verify, and purpose asks whether it's there to inform you or to sell you something. Run a source through those 5 and you'll quickly know if it's worth using. Let's try that on a real case. Imagine you find a blog post claiming a certain diet cures illness. There's no date, so you can't judge currency. The author is just listed as admin, with no qualifications, so authority is weak, and there are no references at all, so accuracy fails too. On top of that, the page is selling the diet plan, which tells you its purpose is to persuade, not inform. Compare it against, say, peer-reviewed research or NHS guidance, and it's clear you should reject the blog and use a properly evidenced source instead. Let's look more closely at primary research. This is where you collect fresh data firsthand for your own study. Data nobody has gathered in quite this way before. It might come from experiments, observations, surveys, interviews or questionnaires, or from studying an original text or artifact directly. The big advantage is control. You decide exactly what gets collected and how. Secondary research works the other way round. Here you're using data that other people have already collected and published, so the hard graft of gathering it is done for you. Think reports, books, academic articles, official statistics, and government figures. Reviewing past studies on your topic counts too. You're interpreting existing evidence rather than creating something new. Putting the two side by side makes the contrast clear. With primary research, you collect the data yourself, so it's fresh and specific to your question, but it takes real time and effort. With secondary research, the data already exists, published before your study even began, so it's broad and quick to access, and usually cheaper. Neither is better in the abstract. It depends on what your study needs. Let's test that with a project on local recycling. If you hand residents a questionnaire you designed, that's primary. You're collecting fresh data. Reading the council's published recycling statistics is secondary, since that data already exists. Watching what people actually put in the bins is first-hand observation, so primary again, while summarizing an academic article is secondary. And notice how many real projects sensibly use a bit of both. Quick pause to check it's sinking in. In your own words, what makes a piece of research primary rather than secondary? Can you give one example of a primary method and one secondary source? And here's a trickier one. Is a government census report primary or secondary data? And why? Have a think before you move on. Let's weigh up primary research properly. On the plus side, the data is current, it fits your exact question, and you control the method and its quality. Plus, nobody else owns it. The catch is that collecting it takes time, it can be costly, and it needs careful planning. And if your sample is small, you have to be cautious about how widely your findings really apply. Secondary research has its own balance sheet. It's usually quick and often free. It can cover large populations or long stretches of time, and it's brilliant for background and context. But there are trade-offs. It may be out of date, it was gathered for someone else's purpose entirely, and it might not fit your particular question as neatly as you'd like. Seeing the strengths and costs together helps you choose well. Primary research gives you current, controlled, relevant data that you own outright, but at the cost of time, money, and sometimes a small sample. Secondary research is fast, cheap, and wide-ranging, yet it may be dated, gathered for another aim, and slightly off your exact focus. The skill is matching those trade-offs to what your project actually demands. So, how do you decide? 5 factors tend to guide the choice. How much control do you need over the data? How current does it have to be? And what's your budget? Then there's time, how long you've got to finish, and relevance, how closely the data must match your question. Weigh those 5, and the right approach usually becomes clear. Picture this: 3 weeks, no budget, and you want to study how students in your class revise. With only 3 weeks, a huge primary study is out, but a short survey is doable. No budget favors free secondary sources, plus a simple class survey. And since you need data about your own class specifically, existing reports just won't cut it. So the sensible answer is to combine the two. Read secondary studies for background, then run a quick primary survey of your class. That respects your time, your budget, and your need for relevant data. Time to test yourself again. Can you name 2 advantages and 2 disadvantages of primary research? Why might secondary data not fit your research question exactly? And on a really tight deadline, which of those 5 factors would weigh on you most? Give each a moment's thought. Let's talk about why a research question matters so much. A topic on its own, say, renewable energy, is far too broad to actually study. Turning it into a question makes it answerable, and it defines your scope, so you know what to include and what to leave out. It keeps you focused instead of drifting, and it tells you exactly what data you need to go and find. Alongside the question sits your research aim, where the question is what you're asking. The aim states what the whole study is trying to achieve. It sets the direction and purpose of the work. It takes a wide idea and narrows it into something feasible, and it gives you a yardstick to judge whether the study actually succeeded. Question and aim really work as a pair, steering the project together. Getting from a broad interest to a workable study is a process of narrowing down. You start with a general area, then focus it onto a specific group, place, or time. Crucially, you check you can realistically collect the data, because a focused question keeps the whole thing manageable, whereas one that's too wide can never be answered well. Narrowing isn't a limitation. It's what makes the study possible. Sometimes you'll take your question a step further and turn it into a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a clear, testable prediction. It states what you expect to find, and ideally why. In scientific research, you then test it against evidence, and a good one can be either supported or rejected by what you find. That sharpness gives your study real clarity and focus. A few more terms worth nailing down. Your research question is the specific thing your study sets out to answer, and the aim is a statement of what it's trying to achieve overall. Scope means the boundaries, what's in and what's out. A hypothesis is a testable prediction of what you'll find, and feasible simply means realistic, to carry out within your time, skills, and resources. Let's build one from scratch, starting with the broad topic, social media and sleep, far too wide as it stands. First, you narrow the scope, say to Level 3 students and their screen use at night. Then you draft a question. Does using social media after 10 p.m. affect the sleep of Level 3 students? Your aim follows, to find out whether late-night use reduces their sleep hours. And finally, a hypothesis, that students on social media after 10 p.m. sleep fewer hours than those who aren't. Now question, aim and hypothesis all share one clear scope, and the study is focused and testable. A word now about AI tools, because they're part of research life today. They can be genuinely useful for brainstorming ideas or explaining a tricky concept in plain words. But, and this matters, you must check every claim an AI makes against a real source, because these tools can invent false facts and even fake references. The thinking and the writing have to stay yours, and you should always follow your center's rules on AI use. Let's draw the line clearly. It's perfectly fine to use AI to explain a difficult idea, suggest search terms, or check your grammar and clarity, as long as you verify anything it gives you against real sources. What's not acceptable is submitting AI text as your own work, trusting its references without checking, letting it do your analysis for you, or hiding that you used it at all. Honesty and verification are the two things that keep you on the right side of that line. Here's how to handle AI openly. Say you used a chatbot to explain a term. First, be honest and state clearly where and how you used it. You might add a short note. I used an AI assistant to explain the term, then verified it against Denscom, 2017. Then reference the tool itself, giving the developer, year, product, version, and how you accessed it. And the source you checked against gets a proper Harvard reference too. Declare it, verify it, reference both. That's all there is to it. Last check for this outcome. Why does a broad topic need narrowing into a research question? What's the real difference between a research aim and a hypothesis? And can you give one acceptable and one unacceptable use of AI in research? If those come easily, you're in good shape.